So welcome, and yeah, thanks for joining us today. I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safepedia, and have the pleasure today of speaking with Alex deLong from IsoMetrix. Alex is the Director of Product Marketing for IsoMetrix Software, and today we're going to talk about their new Lumina solution. So Alex, did you want to provide any background introduction to the audience today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott, for the introduction. I've been with IsoMetrix Software for several months now and come from a background of doing product marketing with many products at different stages of maturity in many different industries and verticals, and have had the pleasure of working in sustainability and ESG reporting with a couple of different products and solutions in the market. So it's exciting to be part of IsoMetrix now with the offering that we have in market.
Yeah, it's exciting times for sure. So in my interview with Paul de Kock the other day, we discussed the background of IsoMetrix and why Lumina was created. So today I was hoping we could discuss with you how Lumina is different from many of the other competing products that are out there, and how it solves those challenges a little differently, relating again to sustainability and ESG management and reporting.
Yeah, I'd say that the challenges are actually quite common across companies collecting consistent, reliable data. When it's environmental or carbon related, then there's another step to calculate the carbon conversion. Then ensuring you can report to disclosure demands, whether they be from investors, customers, or even more often now with regulations like CSRD coming into play, regulatory bodies, making sure that they're in the right format or using the right methodologies behind it. Traditionally, there have been a variety of voluntary standards and frameworks that have some content overlap between them. For organizations looking to report to multiple of these standards or frameworks, ensuring consistent reporting has always been key. It's not a really good look when your reporting is inconsistent from one report to another. So, and then getting a bird's eye view, so to speak, of where your organization sits in its stated goals, whether they be net zero by a target year, improving pay equality, growing volunteer or philanthropy programs, or reducing supply chain risk. So getting that centralized view is always important. And all the major sustainability and ESG management and reporting solutions try to solve these at the most basic level. The approach can vary, however, and I think that's really what sets us apart. So what we've seen are many of the major players in EH&S, environmental health and safety, and GRC, governance, risk, and compliance software, getting greater demand from their customer bases for this carbon management, sustainability, and ESG reporting over the past few years is a situation that I've been part of where I was with a GRC company, and it was really important to cover this gap for a lot of the customers. And a lot of these major players are acquiring startup solutions or independent solutions. There was a big wave of this in 2016, or a wave of this in 2016, and then a really big one from 2020 on through this year. And it honestly, it makes sense, the classic, to make or to partner or to buy decision. And a lot of them have decided to buy it. And when you buy a solution, you inherit many years of development, R&D, along with customers and experts. The acquiring company can use their own resources like marketing, finance, accounting, and HR, and so on to lower the operating costs and hopefully find synergies with their current product portfolio. There are, however, there also, however, tends to be some loss of talent and institutional knowledge through either company-initiated attrition due to redundancies or voluntary attrition from culture clash or management change. I'd actually seen a whole product development team leave which severely put the roadmap behind the 8 ball. Usually the roadmap focuses on more rebranding anyway, with an acquisition, at least to begin with. So with IsoMetrix, our vision was to go a different route with the sustainability and carbon management reporting. Rather than acquire a mature platform, our leadership decided to build a new one, leveraging modern architecture, leveraging modern user interface. You think about many carbon accounting products that were acquired in the past few years, they were launched around 2009 or even earlier. And that's really when we saw the advent of cloud computing, and technology today is just light years ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that approach of obviously times have changed, technologies changed, requirements have changed, and starting from scratch rather than inheriting some legacy systems. You mentioned we'll get into the differentiators, but you mentioned kind of voluntary reporting requirements, and I'm just wondering, if different organizations, different industries, different sizes are kind of listening in. Who should be, or is there a group, I guess, that should be most concerned about getting ahead of the sustainability, ESG management and reporting, as far as much more stringent requirements coming down the pipe?
It definitely depends on, I'd say, first, geography. It's going to be, if you're in a region that has new legislation or strict legislation coming through, requiring transparency for the different components of sustainability, supply chain, human rights, then it's going to be mandatory, and there's going to be penalties, whether it's a fine, and whether the fine is a slap in the wrist or not, or if it's something more serious like for revoking your license to operate, and that can have an even broader impact, or just bigger impact overall. And so those are the ones who definitely should be looking out for it. And also thinking, if you're in the supply chain or value chain of any major organization that has to comply with these, then you're going to have to comply with it, because they're going to have to look into their scope 3 emissions, and which goes in up and downstream. And if you're part of that, then you have to start giving them some of that information. And so places like the European Union, California has legislation that's coming out that, when California releases something, you have to play by those rules if you want to be part of the largest economy in the United States. Canada is stepping into some legislation, and then there's also the United Kingdom that has a couple of things moving around, and Australia has recently, in the past couple of months, announced next year that they're going to start. So if you're in those geographies, definitely have to consider it, have to follow it. If you are touching those geographies or have customers or suppliers that are in those geographies, then it's something you're going to have to look at. And I was at a conference last week, and I asked the question, what's going to happen to some of these voluntary frameworks if there's more mandatory ones? You have to, if you can only choose one, you're probably going to choose the one that's required. And the response that I got was that the voluntary frameworks in some ways are good training grounds. If you don't have the information for a particular topic, then you can explain why you don't. So maybe you don't have that reporting infrastructure, maybe it's not material to your organization, or maybe it's something that you aren't comfortable disclosing publicly, especially if you're a private company and you aren't required to. It could be something that either could be potentially damaging to your reputation, or something that you see as a competitive advantage, and being able to explain those away. But it also is a way to identify what your infrastructure is for reporting, because at some point it's going to come down to pretty much every company of a certain size regardless of their industry. And it's better to, practice before you're required. If you think a sports analogy, you'd never just go into the championship game without practicing, or if you are hosting a group of friends, you don't use a recipe for the first time. You want to make sure that you're good before you're required, and the mandates are going to make it a lot more difficult. I'd say if we want to look at specific sectors or industries, usually the ones that are a bit heavier, whether it's extractives or manufacturing, those tend to have the bigger physical footprint. And so they tend to be looked at first.
That's a really great explanation. Appreciate that. And I think too about, what we saw in the US with OSHA as an example, the different administrations have very different perspectives, and often they may view it as a 4-year window to get, move their initiatives forward. So things can change really, really quickly. And if you're not proactively looking at these solutions right now, you could definitely get squeezed a little bit, like you said, if you're part of that supply chain, or if you're in one of those sectors, or if you're of the proper, large enough size that your footprint, could be, considered problematic, I'll say so. But yeah, no, that was great. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd also, you reminded me, it's one of those things, I wish I had come up with this articulation myself, but because I think it's so good. I heard someone say that, put the analogy together, the GAP framework for accounting had been around for decades before Sarbanes-Oxley. And then that comes into play. You already have your foundation, your infrastructure of how to do good accounting. And then you have to comply with a very prescriptive and stringent requirements. With sustainability reporting, you're kind of doing both at the same time. It's a very complex landscape in terms of figuring out the best way to report, having many different frameworks and standards or which to report, and then governments and other agencies putting into place the framework, the regulation that's very stringent that you have to do at the same time. And so if you're not moving forward, you're kind of falling behind because there's a lot going on with it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention finance and banking as a big sector as well. They actually tend to have a bit different, more unique requirements. SFDR in Europe came out, I think, a year or two ago, and that's already been in play for the financial industry.
Right. And I think that, I've had a sneak peek at the platform, so I have a slight maybe advantage over some people listening, but obviously being able to implement something seamlessly without a whole bunch of extra effort on top of what you're already doing is going to be key, I think, to successful buy-in from the organization, the executive and management team. So maybe, you can touch on, what about this different approach that you guys have taken has resulted in a differentiated software platform?
Yeah, so I'd say we're all in. IsoMetrix has been in the environment, health, and safety platform or software arena for about 25 years or so. And I think first, in terms of the investment that we're making in the solution, we have, of course, a full product development team, but then we also have a dedicated product strategy team and a product architecture team, all looking at the different components of it. So they're able to move the product forward along its roadmap and vision. Lumina itself, the product is built on Microsoft Azure architecture. So the platform benefits from development from one of the top technology companies in the world, Microsoft. And this lends to a natural integration with tools such as Power BI for data visualization. And with that integration is a familiar interface for many business leaders. In terms of being able to scale the product, looking at that as down the line necessity, We leverage Snowflake to keep latency down and to facilitate flexibility with transferring data across different systems when necessary, and being able to keep security very high. In terms of some of the other integrations that we have with the product, I think it's just the ability to work with a lot of best-in-class technologies. Lumina uses flat file to work with Excel and CSV uploading, and uses smart capabilities to flag errors before data is uploaded, and can recommend data headers in circumstances where there's not a full nomenclature match between the internal and what's being uploaded. So it's a way to simplify the process, reduce errors in the importing, and then also be able to make sure that there's alignment with what you have, and have those suggestions, and it learns from the process of uploading. And that's a lot for a year and a half after the MVP is launched. I think it also benefits from the team's understanding on how to fill the feature and configuration gaps that competitors lack. Thinking about some of those older products, we have people who have seen what they're able to do and seeing where their gaps are. And so for us, it's being able to address those early on in the development process. The carbon accounting products, there are carbon accounting products, there are ESG reporting products, and there are risk and compliance products. So some of them were built to do multiple of these. Some are able to do multiple of these after making acquisitions and, kind of Frankensteining modules onto a platform. And some companies will do a bit of smoke and mirrors to make multiple disparate products look like it's just a singular platform to hook in potential customers. We commissioned a top software analyst firm to assess Lumina in carbon management and ESG reporting just a month or two ago. And we were told hardly anyone can do what Lumina is able to do in a single platform across both of those categories. When you think about some of the other products, at least that I've seen and worked with, Lumina maps to disclosure and regulatory frameworks, those ones that we were speaking about a moment ago, better than any that I've seen. And it's definitely the most user-friendly in the way that it's able to align your data, input once, used across many different times in many different ways, does that in a very user-friendly structure. No two companies are the same. If there are industry or region-specific metrics or frameworks that our in-house team does not maintain, and we maintain most of the common ones like GRI, SASB, the IFRS 1 and 2, CDP, to name just a few. Clients can easily add the ones that they have that are unique and report against them and map them to all the others. We see this as very useful in situations like with private equity and private equity backed firms, where they will have a very unique and specific framework to which they want their portfolio companies to report. Same goes for custom greenhouse gas calculations or other custom formulas that tend to be very client specific. Things like estimations based on area for buildings or partial ownership of assets or entities. We make it so customers can do this on a self-service level or with help from our team as well, whatever their preference is. What I like most is clients can make Lumina very industry agnostic. Most similar solutions will base their systems on sites, which is pretty intuitive when thinking about carbon management. We actually go a step backward, I would call it, and enable clients to define what a site or what a node is to their organizational structure. It can be business units, then down to facilities or sites or geographic regions, or as we see with some of those private equity firm examples that define sites as either their corporate-owned ones or portfolio companies. Similar with consulting firms who might define sites as clients and then maintain the data in a single tenant with granular security settings to silo access against unauthorized users. And so I think it's really a lot of that flexibility and making it a solution that can work for customers in any industry or any geography that they have, and being able to use it with the carbon calculation and data visualization throughout.
Great. So you mentioned, you touched on it's been out for about a year and a half. We all know that software development projects always go according to plan, right?
Yeah.
But if you had to kind of touch on a few of the growing pains that you guys have gone through in developing Lumina, can you share those with us?
Yeah. One of the things that I heard in a recent analyst report released, the number one concern for corporate clients reporting on sustainability is the lack of talent and expertise on reporting. And a popular concept with sustainability and ESG reporting is a maturity curve. You don't necessarily see that in a lot of other software sectors. To go with the accounting analogy, there have been degree programs in universities for accounting for decades and decades. Same with finance, even marketing. With sustainability, it's still relatively new, especially in terms of the volume of talent that is out there and able to understand it. And so in looking at this maturity, organizations need to build a reporting infrastructure and visibility across their value chain. There's really no denying that non-financial disclosures are coming, whether they are demanded by regulators, investors, or customers, as we've talked about. And we've seen customers who want to report, but don't have all the dedicated headcount to reach the scale and maturity that they're aiming for. So our approach with customer success and product development has really been able to focus on getting customers at each maturity stage able to do everything that they need to within the product. So as much as possible, we look to develop the baseline requirements for every maturity stage. Although it hurts to say, we won't be the best choice today for a business that's been doing sustainability reporting for over 20 years. There are nuances like reputation monitoring, peer benchmarking, and complex environmental scenario analysis that is just not in our solution yet. But I'd say I'm confident with the product, the personnel investment that we have, that when we get there, we will have one of the top solutions in the market. Lumina is built to integrate with and adapt to modern technologies such as AI faster than many of the competing offerings that are using legacy technology. And so it is making sure that there's this infrastructure within the customers that we have and building to get them and ourselves to higher maturity levels so that we can reach the type of goals that we're looking for, both from a product standpoint and then also bringing customers with us on that journey.
Yeah, that's great. I think that it's a really good point, and not to get lost in all the other great information that you provided, but this is a real opportunity for companies that maybe are looking at it or considering it to really get ahead of that technology curve, adopt some technology that's out in front. Microsoft Azure, like you mentioned, ready to integrate with AI and machine learning, and not inherit the legacy debt that might come along with some of the older solutions that have been around for a while. So I want to thank you, Alex, for taking the time to talk with us today and share your insights on the new Lumina solution that's coming out. We'll have your contact information below, so that people can reach out and connect with you on LinkedIn. Obviously, we'll have IsoMetrix coordinates there as well, so people can reach out and request demos or follow up with additional questions. So thank you again for your time, and I really appreciate with speaking with you today.
Thank you very much, Scott. It's been a pleasure.